All right, so Seth,
Hello, Leo. Good to see you
always
again.
magic when you turn it on and the little square comes up and there you are across the ocean. It's amazing the time we live in, and yet here in Israel, people are ready to go at each other's throats. It's as if all the time that has elapsed, all the technology that we made, almost
I
changed
can't
to
even go
nothing.
to the mainstream media anymore, but sometime in the first hour of getting up, I go through Twitter and see all the different perspectives. I saw that Trump said maybe he'll be arrested on
Oh,
Tuesday, and then I saw
that's
another
nice. Mazel tov.
Mazel tov to him, and then I saw another gigantic protest of people dressed in red. I guess they're going through Tel Aviv or
But yeah,
something
yeah, that
like
was the
that.
North Korean style parade in downtown Tel Aviv. I
What is
saw that.
going on over there, man? It's like
I don't know.
we cannot stop fighting against ourselves.
I know, and frankly, I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed with the media. That's just like stoking the flames because you know everybody loves a little bit of
Why you
action.
have any respect or any expectations that the media is going to
Oh no, no,
do
no,
something well or good?
no, 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 no. Don't forget that Israel loves to follow, to copy paste whatever is happening in America. So we kind of do it, at small scale, and sometimes it's a little more twisted, towards the end. But
It's
we,
but here there's so much land, so much space, so many people. There it really boggles. There's plenty of mind-boggling things here, but it boggles the mind that people don't realize how existential, like how much their literal existence is on the line, and yet they can't stop
yeah,
fighting each other.
it's like a virus. It's like a virus. You're infected and you're taken over, regardless of what side you're on. I think both sides suffer from something. Us, we're trying to be apolitical. I mean, we'll talk about facts, we'll talk about things that are important, and we may say some things that are perceived as, oh, they gotta be right wing or they gotta be liberal. But you kind of find a little bit of both in us because we're trying to hold these two extremes together, right? Um, I think you have to, that's the challenge. But it takes a certain kind of personality to acknowledge what's happening on the right, what's happening on the left, and look for some higher ground. But right
Is
now,
there
right,
any loud presence of anyone who's interested in I don't know, compromise is not the right word, but find some common ground?
the president was supposed to do something, but he mucked it up also. It's not looking good. It's
How
not
does it
looking good.
end? We get into a civil war, and then someone, the Romans, come in and just destroy the temple again or something.
That's definitely one scenario. I mean, the all the Arab nations are just sitting there,
Just
eating their
waiting, letting us.
popcorn and drinking their sodas and just waiting for, uh, rubbing their hands. And
Maybe that's what it'll take. We already went through this. Maybe that's what it'll
I don't
take
know.
for the Jewish people to unite.
Come on, it happened so many times. It happened, thousands of years. This social experiment has been going on for thousands of years, and still it hasn't. I don't know what it'll take, but
What an attack, God forbid, from the outside
I,
might
I,
unite the
I
people.
honestly, I feel like we're even past that point at this point a little bit. It's like I don't know. I mean, people have really deep-seated grudges, and the very progressive media is kind of like harping on that, and the people who are disappointed with the current government are harping on that. So everybody's interests are just to kind of keep this going because you feel like you're venting stuff that's been inside of you for so long, and people feel justified. And we know when people feel justified, it's hard. It's not like a discussion about something and we want to find some middle ground. No, I feel, I've had enough. It's like it's a step before the divorce. But there is no divorce. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah, where do you go?
Maybe, dude, 50 years ago, you could have maybe the Jews were still favored in the world. You could have traveled to the old, Europe, parts of Europe that will welcome you with some,
Yeah, go to
out of
France,
guilt.
go
Yeah,
somewhere.
out of guilt, you go to France, you go to Germany, you could come to America, the opportunities. But now everything is closing in. I don't know. Maybe we
Okay,
need another
so
perspective.
this by the way, this is a an excellent way to then segue to, is there a place, where's the place for the Jews in America, with the left or with the right? Because in Israel you have They're both sides are Jews, the left and the right. And in America,
I think the question is, and I hope our guest will help us with that as well, is can you bring Jews together? This year has been declared the year of polarity by the rich guys in Davos or something. That I like how they finally catch up to what we all, all of us poor people figured out, 12 months ago. They're like, oh, well, we think it's the year of polarity. Yes, yes, geniuses. So it's the year of polarity. Can we survive the polarity? Can we find a way to unite above the polarity? If someone can do it, I feel it's only the Jewish people. They hold something, but let's see.
Antisemitism is a part of life.
Jews influence medicine. Jews influence science. Jews influence politics. So
the fact that it's been normalized in even in your mind, that to me is a scary thing.
So I feel like we need to save America and maybe by extension the world.
But I wonder if that America still exists.
He's the host of the extremely popular AJ Steele show.
The population is stupid.
He's been shadow banned. He's a Jew. He's a conservative.
I believe leftism is like a virus.
This man is unafraid to say what so many want to scream out.
But we're all sheep.
Let's welcome our guest, AJ Steele. Mr. Steele.
The Jew saw them all, beat them all, and is now what he always was. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?
How are you?
Hey, it's great. It's great to be on a Jew function. I've been watching you for a while now, and you have some great discussions. So I'm looking forward to talking to both of you.
Nice.
Conservative in San Francisco.
Yeah, it's a rare bird for sure.
It's like a Jew in the world.
Can you give us a little timeline of yourself? I know because you have a curious history. Maybe a quick recap?
Yeah, curious and not very exciting. So I was born in a small country in the Middle East that is not a Muslim country, interestingly. I immigrated to America when I was 13, straight to San Francisco. I was extremely poor with my family. My father was a police officer in that small country. My mom was an artist. I came from an artist colony in, I guess that small country is called Israel. And we came to America. We suffered like all poor immigrants. I lived in a trailer park with my grandma, went to college, worked hard, washed dishes, changed oil, graduated college, became a healthcare administrator, previous to that, I played in a rock band. I toured all over the world, Europe.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, I heard about that.
We did Europe, we did America, leather pants, all the good stuff. They don't fit me anymore, unfortunately. And then I became a healthcare administrator, and I did very well, invested well, was lucky enough to retire young. And now I do this podcast because I'm trying, if not to change the world, maybe help save it a bit.
Save it from what? I'm curious because there's so many things you got to save it from. So I'm curious. What are you trying to save it?
Well, the AJ Steele show comes from a perspective that is not a Jewish. I mean, I obviously have my Jewish background, and that's a part of who I am. That's a part of my DNA. But I'm an American, and I'm a proud American. America has been a very wonderful country to me and to my family. It's given me everything that I have. It's given me a wonderful life. I've never suffered from discrimination or racism. People always open the doors to me. People of all races and all colors. So I feel like we need to save America and maybe by extension, the world.
Does that America still exist? Because I know the America you're talking about. I know some people don't identify with that America at all, but I do know the America you're talking about. But I wonder if that America still exists.
That America is on life support, in my opinion. I believe that our society has been educated to death to hate this nation. And by the way, Israel has very similar issues. I believe leftism is like a virus. I think it's infiltrated our schools. It's infiltrated our government. It's infiltrated all of our institutes. And, the population is stupid. Are Americans stupid by nature? No. Are Israelis stupid by nature? No. But we're all sheep. It's very easy to follow what people tell us to do. You add the drugs into that. You add the video games, I think, what did the Romans call it?
Bread and circus.
Basically, right? I think Marie Antoinette said, let them eat cake. Well, we're eating cake and we're still high from that cake, from that sugar high.
I spent probably half my life in Israel, half my life in America, and now I came back to Israel, and I am surprised by the similarities we talked about in the beginning of the show. Uh, what I'm not surprised now that I have both perspectives is to see that Jews can't get along equally in any of those places. And one of the things that we're trying to to investigate, what we like to find out if it's at all possible is if that natural friction that exists between us, if that has something to do with it, because we're not like a nation like all other nations. I mean, we can sit here and say, oh, we like everyone else, and New York is, Jerusalem is like New York, or Tel Aviv is like New York, and whatever. But it's not. The more you say it, the more it sounds artificial. It's not. There's something a little different about the history, the roots of this people, how it came together, why it came together, and I'm curious if what you've seen as a Jewish man, young man growing up in America, and now are you still feeling that? Are you still feeling that? First of all, that separation from the whole. Do you feel that to some extent, or you're like, no, everybody's the same role, I'm like everyone else?
Well, without starting to talk about, of course we're different, and of course I feel a separation. Now, it's not about elitism or feeling superior or inferior. We're not talking about those kind of things. But the Jewish people by design are different. If you look at the Bible, if you look at the original sources, we were put to be different than other people.
Oh,
now we're talking about how different we are, but in some ways we're exactly the same. My grandparents are Holocaust survivors, were Holocaust survivors. They're not with us anymore. I always thought that the Germans were very unique in the way that they followed their leader, Hitler, Nazism, etc. I thought it was unique to the German. I thought it was a genetic or a cultural kind of defect. And the more I live now, the more I see the world, the more I see what's happening in America. And again, Israel. And it's very troubling what's happening in Israel right now. And I don't want to get too deep into politics. People can be led, very easily led, and to do horrible things. But as far as being Jewish, I think it's a very unique position. I think we are very unique people. But like I just said, we're also very similar to everybody else. We can be led. We can be just as stupid, just as silly, except that we get picked on. And that's a big difference from us and the rest.
So how would you define or explain to an alien what is a Jew? What or who is a Jew?
Well, that's a tough question. I'll tell you why. Because there's religious Jews, and you can go by the actual description of a Jew. It's someone who believes in the one God. Someone who believes that Jerusalem is the place where God lives, or at least this place where earth and heaven unite, and that Israel is the land of the Jews. But today's Jews, and again, there's cultural Jews and there's religious Jews. I'm not a very religious man myself. Sometimes I border on being an agnostic. I don't know. I go back and forth. But my Judaism culturally is very strong. I believe in my tradition. I love the art that came out of our religion. I love the ability to think outside the box and agitate too. But that goes two ways. So people always say, well, Jew, it's very easy to pick on us. Why is it easy to pick on us? Because a lot of us are smart. Hopefully, I think the two of you for sure are very bright. And I think that we end up in leading positions. But those positions can go either way. We can be leaders on the left and we can be leaders on the right. Now, it creates a natural, I'm going to say it very simply, it's called jealousy. A lot of Jewish people are intelligent, whether by genetics, whether culturally. I'm not going to get too deep into that. And they're successful. But success has a price, because success makes you not only a target, but a very visible target.
We have an explanation of this intelligence that you said you don't want to get into it. We won't get too much into it. We talk a lot about it in our early episodes, but it's like we kind of liken it to someone with two eyes being able to see depth, right? To have a stereoscopic vision and able to see depth and able to see the picture in those. Remember those 80s posters that you had to kind of soften your gaze, your focus, and then you could see, oh, there's like a puppy. Remember those? They would sell them on the promenade everywhere. But if you have one eye, you can't see that. It doesn't matter how hard you try, you just can't see that picture. So Jews have that that stereoscopic vision because they were the only nation that were able to, for whatever reason, I'm not getting into that, but whatever reason, were able to kind of connect, form a network, a very unique type of network, thousands of years ago, and that was the thing that kind of kept us going. And that's what we claim in all of our research. Everything we found was like, okay, Jew, Yehudi, from the word Yehud, to unite, create a unified network of sorts where things happen a certain way, where certain laws happen, function, and that even that memory gives Jews an edge everywhere. They see things systemically.
That kind of Mount Sinai moment where you have all these people who have all of these reasons to fight against each other, but somehow also, in addition to that, also we're able to somehow have some unifying force on top of all of that hatred between them. And that's what caused that stereoscopic vision, is to have the differences, to be Larry David, or what's that guy, Sam Stein, or whatever that guy now, that atheist Jew that's on all the podcasts. Sam Harris, yeah, the left guy, and then very, very far right wing hawk Jews, but somehow also have that additional force that they realize that there has to be some kind of cover, there has to be some kind of connection between them. I think that's the thing, the unique thing that we're discovering, that makes this nation so unique. And of course, it only happens to a small group, because it's very, very difficult to maintain something like that on a small level, even, let alone.
So the question is, are you calling that unifying thing God? Are you calling that unifying thing a shared culture? Are you calling it genetics? Is it nature or nurture? That's the question.
I think that what we're seeing is that you can call it God if you want, but it's a natural force. It's something that is intrinsic in nature itself. Nature is.
Yeah, no, I'm just to add that there's a Kabbalist that we quote often, Yehuda Ashlag, Baal HaSulam. He wrote the commentary in the Book of Zohar and a lot of interesting things. And he says, listen, there's laws in nature, like gravity, electrostatic, right? All those laws. If you stick your finger in the socket, you're going to get electrocuted. Now, you can call it a law, or you can call it a mitzvah, that do not stick your finger in thy socket. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's going to work on you no matter what. So he's saying, and a lot of, by the way, Jewish sages are saying it, like, look, if you are able to maintain that connection above this forces of separation, so essentially plus over minus, right? Like an electric circuit, you can get something good out of it, right? Like, you can get work out of it. You can get light, right? Not to sound mystical, right? You can get, if you put the two things together, but just plus or just minus on their own, they're not going to take you long, right? Far. So that's what we're saying, that there is something. I don't know, you don't want to name it. I'm just saying that there are laws in nature. You feel it sometimes when it happens, like in a marriage. You talk a lot about your Mrs. Steele, right, in your show, right? If you can maintain that sort of that love above sometimes a lot of fireworks,
true,
you can get like real fireworks, right? You can get like, sometimes people call it makeup sex, but it's not. It's much deeper than makeup sex. It's like,
what's makeup sex?
But it's it's that ability to somehow overcome a strong friction and stay in it. Something we don't like to do as people. We like to run away, right? Things get a little too friction. I'm gonna find another job, another partner. I'm just gonna go to Tinder. We shy away from conflict. Wow. From
Tinder, right? Makeup sex. You sure this is an R-rated show? Where are we going with this?
Hey, you have a show
about
to politics,
talk about what people are not willing to talk about.
Exactly, politics, sex, and money. It's the same. We're trying to be like you.
I should get my bondage outfit then, right? I am in San Francisco. Be careful.
It's true, but I mean, there's a reason why those metaphors are apt, because they're not metaphors; they're analogies. Because you find in every place there's like strong relationship in nature. You'll find it. Whether it's sex, whether it's electrical circuits, whether it's atomic bombs, it doesn't matter. You need to have these two strong forces and then somehow keep them together, right?
I think you're talking about, really, it could be summarized as catharsis. That's really what we're looking for.
But never ending. But never ending.
Causes heat. Excuse me.
I said, but never ending catharsis. Not a one time and like, then we take a vacation. No, it's a continuously living in a state of catharsis-like state, if you can imagine it.
Well, I think that's interesting. I think the Jewish history is full of that, not just within each other as Jews, but also because of the way the world forces us to be that way. So whether because we've been the victim or because we've been a light to the nations, which is in some ways absolutely true, we've had to be in that constant state of friction, and that does push for results. That's why, you know, I believe in competition. I believe in capitalism. That's the free spirit that creates things. You can never create things by not having the ability to think for yourself and think outside the box. Just this morning, I was notified by YouTube that they removed another one of our shows. We had a great interview with a professor, Gregory Borse, brilliant guy from Arkansas. They just removed it. We had 6,000 or 7,000 views. It's not bad. I mean, for our YouTube channel, which is not very popular, but you know, we've had probably 50 or 60,000 listeners on it for the podcast. They just removed it. And the guy was just
what
bright.
did they cite? What did they cite as the reason?
I think there was something brought up about elections in it, you know, and apparently we're not allowed to discuss it. And I think at the beginning of the show, you two talked about what's happening in the world. I mean, they're about to arrest Trump. I knew that was going to happen. I predicted that 2 years ago. That's the only way things will move forward. And by silencing folks like you and myself, it's horrible.
Yeah, we've been terribly shadow banned. I know you say that your show has been shadow banned.
Absolutely.
So how do we get the word out, AJ? How do we get people to talk? First of all, I mean, what did you find, you know, that's working? Because you've been more successful than us, maybe.
Well, we've been very lucky, and you guys are very successful. You have a great show, and I think you're moving forward. And I think talking to different people like myself and the other folks that you talk to is going to get people interested. It's very difficult. I don't have the answer. Sometimes, you know, I have a large audience, like I said before, and they're wonderful people, and there are all kinds of people. And most of them, I would say, are Christians. I have some conservative Jews. I have some Orthodox Jews. Not too many liberal Jews listen to me. They think I'm the devil, basically. But sometimes I feel like I'm talking to an echo chamber, because even though we have a lot of people listening to us, we're not really getting the word out, and we've been ostracized. It's horrible, you know, and unfortunately, I mean, the big tech has a monopoly on everything. So right now, this show that you're doing with me could be erased or removed if they don't like something that I said or that you said. And it's very dangerous. But, you know, I was thinking a couple of days ago about what's happening, all the arrogance of the bankers and this and that. And, you know, how they're basically thumbing our eyes at our eyes. And, you know, these kind of things lead to revolutions. Now, I would never advocate for physical or violent revolution, but it's when the rich, or the elites, I should say, reach a point where they're so arrogant that they're unaccountable, that's when people rise. But again, we're still at the cake stage. Marie Antoinette is still giving us cake, and we're on the sugar high. Things get bad when people don't have food. Things get bad when wars begin, but we're not at that stage yet.
So
go ahead, Leo.
No, so just on that, zeroing on the Jewish population, do you feel that the Jews are still eating cake, or they feel like anti-Semitism is bubbling, it's not safe, or people are still kind of think it's you know, it's going to pass, it's just a bump in the on the road? Jew Function is really it's a desperate attempt to change something about the rise in anti-Semitism that doesn't seem to go away, and looking at history usually ends with something terrible before we reach relative quiet again. But we don't want to reach something terrible. We want to do it now. So that's why we're doing this podcast. And if you like this, also consider leaving a small contribution on our Patreon channel. Right, we both have day jobs, by the way, so we're not hoping to make money from this. We're hoping to see some change of heart.
Any funds are used to get this out there, to get this to people. We consider this the same way you go out every day to get money to feed your family, put a roof over your head. This is also critically important to our future, to our safety, to a good world, not only for Jews, but for everyone.
This is the Jew Function, and let's get back to our guest. Zeroing on the Jewish population, do you feel that the Jews are still eating cake, or they feel like anti-Semitism is bubbling, it's not safe, or people are still kind of think it's going to pass, it's just a bump in the on the road?
Well, anti-Semitism has been around for about 2,000 years, basically right after Jesus was crucified. Basically, that's where it started officially. I think Paul, the apostle. And I have to be very careful because my wife comes from a very religious Catholic family. I was lucky enough that she converted for me, and she was very kind to do that. But she comes from a very religious Catholic family, and they're very decent people. So I have a lot of connection to all kind of people. But if we look at the root of anti-Semitism, where it began, I would say, because of a Jew. Jesus was a Jew. He wasn't an anti-Semite, but I think that Paul the Apostle, who basically spread the word of Christianity to the non-Jewish world, he took important steps to not just separate the two religions, the Jerusalem Christians and the world Christians, but he actually led to a lot of anti-Semitism, and it's become ingrained. So anti-Semitism is a part of life. Now, I'm going to have to say that I haven't felt it in America. I would say for about 30 years. I've been here since 1983. I've never felt it. I was always treated very well, but obviously it's bubbling. I felt it in college. I did some things in college to fight back. I went to SF State, which is a hotbed of anti-Semitism. Berkeley, all those areas where my kids go. Horrible places, and you can't just be a student anymore. If you're Jewish, you're singled out in many ways. The question is, and you say, do Jews know about anti-Semitism? Which Jews are you referring to? Because there's Jews and there's Jews.
I would dare say anyone. I mean, if you speak to
the Orthodox guys in Brooklyn getting punched in the face, they know about it. Yeah. But I think that most suburban Jews that I know, it's not on the radar at all. At all.
Until it lands in there, until there's like a swastika on their car, they think it's not going to happen to me. It's a thing. It's a fad. It's it happens in certain places, certain people, by certain people. That's the general vibe that we get from a lot of Jews that we speak to try to downplay it, thinking, oh, don't stir it up. Don't ask about anti-Semitism.
But also, Leo, we're very focused on this. But I think it rises, and then we're like, oh, okay, the Kanye thing happens. Okay, now it's in the media now, and 2 weeks later, my dad, I think, calls it 90 days. And I said, what about this? What about it? He goes, don't worry, 90. I go, Dad, yeah, but what about, you think people aren't going to remember this? I go, what about Afghanistan? He goes, when we pulled out of Afghanistan, he goes, nobody remembers Afghanistan. And he's like, you remember. No, nobody else remembers. So most people, he's a pretty smart, business guy. His perspective on these things is like, 90 days is the time frame that people remember. So Kanye's 90 days ago, it's or whatever, it's over. And I don't think that his perspective is, unless it affects your pocket, unless it affects your money, people will forget in 90 days. If you do something that affects people's money, their ability to feed themselves, as AJ said, then you have a bigger problem on your hand. But all the other stuff, it's like the frog being boiled. Because you just it doesn't stay in the forefront, and it's too easy they keep giving us cake, more and more cake.
Do you feel, AJ? Do you feel around where you are right now, a person of your age, of your stature? Do you feel it at all?
Look, so I live in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, which is a hotbed of liberalism. I live in Marin County, which is, I would say, there's quite a bit of Jewish people that live here. They're mostly extreme liberals. Do I feel it personally? Not really, but I live an independent life. I'm not in college anymore. I don't work anymore. I sit home and garden, go out kayaking on the weekend. So do I feel it? No. But do I feel it in the air? Absolutely. But this is the interesting conundrum. I would say that most Jews, at least the kind of Jews that I know around here, they don't really, they're Jewish. They're what I call, bagel and lox Jews, but they're not
Right.
really Jewish. So they don't feel it. And, talking to my grandma back in the days about the Holocaust, a lot of Jews in Europe didn't feel it either. Oh, Hitler will pass. This will come. This will go.
Yeah.
They didn't feel it. They were like the frogs boiling. That's a big part of it. Part of it is just fear. And, a lot of American Jews, unlike the Orthodox, who I have a lot of respect for, they rather just blend in. They're Jews light. The
AJ, what about
synagogues
your
that they go.
kids? What about
I'm
your
sorry?
kids at school? I don't know how old your kids are, but what about your kids at school?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, my kids at school, my oldest daughter is 33, so she's not in school anymore. My three others are in college, and
okay, so they're
my
already
youngest
older.
son is in high school. He's a junior. I don't think they feel it, but they feel the political pressure that is being inflicted on traditional people. That to me is a bigger issue. It's not so much about being Jewish or not, but they definitely live with it every day. You can't think for yourself. You cannot have any kind of a traditional mindset. So no, I don't feel, I read about it. How about this? When I go to synagogue on rare occasions, I bring a weapon with me. So I'm going to protect myself, but I come from a different kind of Jew, from a different kind of place where Jews do protect themselves. So it's out there. There's actual Nazis that live in
So you
Sonoma
go to
County.
synagogue, you take your talis, your kippah, and your gun.
I don't do
Honey,
it
have you
too
seen
often.
my pistol?
But the fact that it's been normalized in even in your mind that this is how things are these days, that to me is a scary thing. We grew up thinking the Holocaust was the end of it. It's like the last time that we allowed people to walk in fear because of their history, their culture, their religion, their whatever. And here we are. Not even 100 years have passed, and people are still alive from the Holocaust.
True.
Doesn't matter. It's almost like an I dare say natural processes that are stirring the pot. How we like to look at like natural forces forcing people to masses of people to move to behave. Yes, there are agents of people who have to say things and do things, but we really like to look at the whole system, and the question is, how did we let it become the norm? Why are we agreeing with it?
I think that's a difficult question. You're saying, how did we let it become the norm?
Are you
talking about the Jewish people, or are you talking the wider world? Well, the world, we are tribal. Human beings are tribal. Okay. And I think I covered earlier why the Jews are hated when it started. It's become almost innate now. It's so ingrained. I remember meeting a young lady. This was about 20 years ago from, I think she was from Guatemala or Peru. And she told me, I told her I was Jewish. And she said, I hate the Jews. We hate the Jews. Why? Because you're all greedy and you're all rich. And back then I was living in a tiny apartment, 1-bedroom apartment, barely making ends meet, going to college. And I said, wow, did you ever meet a Jew? No. It's institutional and it's almost innate at this point, and it's not going to change. And I don't think we can change it as Jews. A man that I met a couple of times and I had some respect for, his name was Shimon Peres. He was prime minister of Israel for a while, and he was a president, I believe. He said something very clever that I never forgot. He talked about the Palestinians, but this can apply also for the Jewish issue. He said, some problems cannot be solved, but they need to be managed. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's exactly it. This will never end. Anti-Semitism is not the fault of the Jewish people, even though you're neglecting to mention what the political strike that. Even though you're failing to mention the fact that a lot of Jews on the left are actually siding with the anti-Semites in some ways.
We mentioned it a lot. I just didn't mention it today. But
of course,
it's one of our questions. Why do you think so many Jews end up being anti-Semites themselves, or
look
part
at
of the
BDS,
organization?
it's loaded with Jews.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, you can get into the self-hatred and you can start insulting them, which I do plenty on my show. I insult everybody. There's a self-hatred. There's a sense that they want to preserve themselves. If you're not seen, if you go with a crowd, with a mob, they don't see you to single you out. Unfortunately, that's been proven a false strategy, right? But it didn't just start with, again, none of this started with the Holocaust. We keep referring to the Holocaust because that was the biggest tragedy in our history. But, it happened before. It happened many times. Pogroms in Russia. Here in America, we had Nazis. Here in America, there's neighborhoods in LA that still under deed say not allowed to sell to blacks or Jews till today. Now, of course, it doesn't stand legally, but it actually says that on the deeds. So America wasn't that different in general.
Of course.
So like I said, I like to refer to this. I'd like to say we can't solve this problem. It will never be solved, but we can manage it. And the question is, how do we do that?
So let me challenge you on that, because I read in the article somewhere that you like to say, keep things simple, always ask questions, don't be afraid to grow, right? Something like that. I'm paraphrasing you.
True.
So we do hear that from some of our guests and some of the people we speak to. Say, look, it's a fact of life, right? It's like there's anti-Semitism, and you got to manage this. You got to live with it, but do the best you can, so that with the cards you dealt, kind of approach.
Yes.
But we don't. We're having, let's say, we're having a hard time subscribing to this, mainly because you look at nature, and maybe individuals in nature. If you look at the animal kingdom, you look at plants. I forget about rocks for a second. Let's focus on the two levels that are kind of alive in our eyes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You look at those two degrees in nature, and yes, you see individuals or individual specimen in certain groups live with certain problems, but on the whole. There is no, you don't live with a problem just for the sake of the problem, meaning it's always part of something bigger. A problem is always a solution to another problem. You know what I mean? It's like, have you seen that movie, Biggest Little Farm?
No, I haven't.
It's about this pair from LA who was forced to move out of their apartment, and they buy a farm, and they decide to grow it according to biodynamic principles, where it's all like holistic and everything. You diversify, and you don't fight nature. You kind of work with it. And they're taught that every problem that you see is not really a problem. You have to think not in terms of, how do I eradicate it, but where does it lead me, and what do I need to do to work with it, right? So one day, for example, he sees like snails on his lemon tree orchard, lots of snails, so he can spray them. Or he's like, oh no, I'm going to bring my all the geese because they're looking for food, and the lake is now not working well. He brings the geese eat the snails and everything. It's all like. But it serves one sort of bigger purpose, right? The harmonious quality of the farm, right? That the whole cycle is preserved. I'm asking, what role does this anti-Semitism play in our development?
What solution does this problem? What is it causing us to need to do?
Right.
So I'm a much simpler guy than both of you. I believe it's a dog-eat-dog world.
Well, that's debatable, but okay.
I'm very pragmatic about this, and I don't have any rosy outlooks about any of this, unfortunately.
No, we're thinking together.
Even what you're talking about, the farm concept, that's also management, actually. There's no solution. I mean, the snail that's being eaten by the geese is not very happy, right? So you're managing them.
You're right. You're right. That was an example.
Problem after that.
Well, no, that was an example on that level that it sort of serves the harmonious life of the farm as a whole. I'm asking what to extend that metaphor to our life. We have anti-Semitism. We have this external pressure on Jews, right? Yes. Which you can say, well, it forces us to be good at certain things and kind of strive more and all the rest of it. But to what end? Like, what is that bigger harmonious quality that we are yet to see in human nature? Maybe that's what I'm asking.
So I think what you're talking about is symbiosis. That's what it sounds like to me. Everybody has a place. I do believe Jews have a place in this world. We can contribute. I mean, shows like yours, where we can sit there and talk for hours. We're good at that. That's what Jews do. We can come up with solutions. We can cause trouble. That's what we do. If we make ourselves useful, and again, I'm not taking any kind of a back-end position. I don't think I'm any less or any more than anybody else. I'm very proud of my Jewish tradition. I'm very proud of our history. I'm very proud of many Jewish people. But we have to understand our place in this big cycle, in this big, world. We're not the only people that exist. There's a lot of other people in this world. There's a lot of other people that want what we have. So symbiosis, how does that work? You teach people. You create things, you do great things, but most important, you have to be strong. Weakness is frowned upon, not just in the human world, but in the animal world. Okay. The lion becomes the head of the herd only because he's the strongest one. The weaker ones die. So I've always told this to my kids. I tell it to everybody who would listen. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there. Try to be, if not the biggest dog, the dog that has the sharpest teeth and keeps people away from you. There's no other solution.
So what makes Jews strong?
Well, are we strong?
We claim that we're only strong when we're united, and that every calamity in history came upon us when we showed this infighting, this weakness right before the calamity came upon us. We usually remember the calamity, but not the thing that preceded it, right? Everybody remembers like, oh,
for a second. Yeah, AJ, you touched on it for a second, but we extensively go in through history. What happened before the Romans destroyed came and destroyed the temple? What happens before the Greeks? What happened before the Persians tried to? What happens before the Germans tried to? And every time when you dig in and actually dissect what happens, we were trying to kill ourselves, each other, the Jews. We're fighting with each other and weakened ourselves before anybody was able to defeat us.
Well, that's an interesting point, but it's also a bit egocentric. And why am I saying that?
Okay, but that doesn't mean it's not true.
Oh, it's absolutely true. I mean, when the Romans were besieging us, Josephus writes about this. There were three factions in Jerusalem killing each other, stealing from each other. They're a bunch of thugs. So there's no question about it.
So why even say egocentric, though? What's the purpose of even saying that?
Because I'll tell you why. Because in my opinion, you're ascribing to the Jews an ability to be united because we're Jews. But you know what? Nobody's united. Are the Christians united? Are the Muslims united? Do you see what the Iranians are doing to the Sunnis? Right. So what I'm saying is this: we're unique, but we're not that unique. There's never been a time in history where the Jewish people, or any other race for that matter, or religion, has been united.
We'd say there was one time, maybe, which was maybe like the Sinai, which is why we received the Torah. But here's the thing.
Wait, there's another time. Okay, finish your thought.
I have a counter to that, by the way.
Okay, good. Let's forget history and all those fairy tales for a second. Let's say like this. You're right. Okay. However, what if they're out of 8 billion people? What if we took a tiny group that has black people in it, that has gay people in it, that has right wingers in it, that has left wingers in it?
Everybody.
Tiny group.
I understand.
Maybe 16 million or so. I don't know, something really, really small. And let's say that this tiny group, because it's too much to manage everyone, and it's never been done before, let's say. So what if it's possible that this tiny group, as a microcosm of humanity, could figure it out and be an example? What about that?
Well, that's asking for a lot. It's very Marin County thinking. All my neighbors feel that way. Again, I'm very pragmatic. I think human beings are tribal. I think by nature, we're teams of rivals, even within the Jewish people. I mean, you look at Israel, I remember, people with dark skin were hated by the Jews with white skin.
Well, absolutely.
Even within the European, the Ashkenazis, if you're a German Jew, you're higher than a Hungarian Jew, which is what I am, by the way. And then my dad is an Indian Jew. He was considered lower than my Hungarian family. So it's called tribalism. The black community, if you're a dark-skinned black guy, you're considered less desirable than the lighter-skinned black guy.
Of course.
Within Christianity, it's the same thing. So what I'm saying is this: we need to manage it. And I keep going back to that. I understand what you're saying about, we can all get along. And why can't we all get along?
We're not trying to be naive. We're not trying to be naive idiots. We're not trying to be naive idiots. We are, as passionate and as serious and as pessimistic also as you are, but not pessimistic, but realistic. But we're also saying, like you, for example, you're 15 years old or 16 years old, and you're changing the oil and you're washing the dishes. And who would think that you'd be retired by your 40s and like doing your thing, right? So that's a massive change. So we're also washing dishes now and saying, like, we are looking towards something and saying, if there, imagine if we could do this. Imagine what that future could be.
Look, the ideal is beautiful. I'm not opposing everything that you're saying. I wish it was that way. I just don't see it realistic. When in history, human history, have people gotten along? Do you think
never
got along with it?
So, all right. So first of all, to answer your question, there was one time when Jews actually displayed that kind of unity. That was after there was, a moment after the first temple, and then there was a moment a few hundred years after the second temple, where they had that and Josephus writes about that, and a few other historians. It was like really like the Woodstock of.
But we don't have any videos of it, so we shouldn't dwell on it too much.
Exactly, but that was a moment when this happened. Everybody around looked at them. All the Greeks, future philosophers, came to learn from them, and then took it back to Greece and started philosophy from these ideals, these ideas. You can't change the world, right? You can't change a country. You can't change a city. You can't change a neighborhood. It's hard to get everyone in your building to agree on something, but you can change yourself. And that's what we're after. Little changes that will grow to a critical mass. What we're saying also is that we Jews, we've had it. There was a moment in time that Jews actually touched that quality that the whole world is waiting for us to give them, and which is what we're discussing in our talks. And you can hear about it in episode 7 of the Mystery Book podcast, the first 22 episodes of this whole series. And we go into some really heartwarming descriptions, right? Like the
Temple
Woodstock.
Love, that episode is called.
What's that? Temple Love, right?
Yeah, Temple Love.
Yeah, it was the Woodstock before Common Era.
Yeah, people should listen to that one and get a taste of something that they always knew should exist or could exist. It did exist. That's what we're looking to build. Check that out in episode number 7, Temple Love.
This is the Jew Function, and let's get back to our guest. First of all, to answer your question, there was one time when Jews actually display that kind of unity. That was after there was a moment after the first temple, and then there was a moment a few hundred years after the second temple where they had that, and Josephus writes about that, and a few other historians. It was like really like the Woodstock of.
But we don't have any videos of it, so we shouldn't dwell on it too much.
Exactly, but that was a moment when this happened. Everybody around looked at them. All the Greeks, future philosophers, came to learn from them, and then took it back to Greece and started philosophy from these ideals, these ideas. So it is, it did happen, even for a split second
not to be a huge contrarian, but in times of trouble, people do unite. But, even within the Jewish people, you could talk about the Bar Kokhba revolt, which happened 130, I think, 132, something like that. There were plenty of people who were for the revolt against the Romans, and there's plenty of Jews that were against. I mean, Josephus himself was a traitor to the Jewish cause. Mm-hmm. I think times of trouble do unite people, but I think by nature we're just tribal, and we're individuals, and we all think for themselves. And maybe the Jews in some ways are less united than most others because we have this propensity to argue. Look at us now. We're the
worst. No, AJ, we claim that we're the worst, but what we're claiming is that if someone can do it, it's Jews. That's all we're saying. And I'll tell you, up until the recent kind of beginning of a civil war here in Israel, I could say that very different people, different in belief, different in color, could sit together around the holiday table, around a Shabbat table. They had those micro dosages of unity happening all throughout. It's happening all the time, breaking and happening. But it's like there's. What we're saying is that, yes, as crazy as it seems or sounds, by looking at nature, that's what nature does. Bacteria was able to do it. If bacteria started as tribal and competitive and figured out eventually that, hey, we gotta unite, and suddenly when they did it, boom, they reached this super conscious organism, right? Rising from this single cellular, microbes. So it happens in nature. Then you have Jewish sages talk about it. Hey, look, you guys are very different, but you have to unite. Then you look at network science and how networks work, and how when these things happen, when the hubs in the network kind of work in harmony, amazing things happen. So what we're saying is, yes, it looks like a pipe dream, but it also looks like the only way. I mean, you say manage. I don't see us managing things much longer. Look at what's happening between Russia and Ukraine, which is like basically East versus West, China, Iran, Saudi. Everybody's in on everybody else. We're not managing shit, man. We're just driving off the cliff, and we're still fighting on who's holding the wheel. So,
I don't disagree with you. I think your idea is beautiful. The question is, what unites people? I think I asked that earlier. Is it God? Is it tradition? Is it a common culture? What
higher goal?
So what is that goal? What are you proposing?
What we're saying.
We need to well, hold on. Let's be honest, though, also, and not too presumptuous.
No. I'm very simple. You're a pragmatic guy, right? Coca-Cola could get medicine and I'm sorry, Coca-Cola could get Coca-Cola to every spot on the planet by the late 80s, right?
Okay.
Why can't we get food and clothing and shelter to every place on the planet? Because interest, right? Because we're like, I'm just going to take a little bit here and then screw that guy, right? Because he's far away. What if we had a goal of saying, let's just make the goal super material, localized here and now. We have all the resources. We can take care of every person alive, have a good time at it. Why not do it?
Well, you're starting to sound like Karl Marx now.
Well, but I'm not saying...
Is that the purpose here?
No, I'm saying, no, screw that. He totally missed that. He missed it big time.
So my thing is this: we're different. You and I are different. You and I, we all are different. We have different needs. We have different desires. Some of us want money. Some of us want good looks. Some of us want sex all day, right?
Excellent.
And some of us want all of them.
Some of us want all of it.
I'm sorry?
Some of us want all of it.
That's what I was saying, right?
Right. Okay.
I'm assuming that's you, right?
Of course.
So great. So food, sex. So food, sex. Look, food, sex, a family, money, honor, power, not all those things, different desires people have. We get it. Different desires, like a big EQ of desires, right?
Of course.
But above it, there should be a higher goal. It's like all your cells in your body, man. Don't go far. All your cells are very different. You have acids in your body. You have base. You have bone. You have soft tissue. All of that stuff somehow, I don't know how, somehow manages to stick it together, not eat each other, to produce what? To allow for a higher... I
totally understand. So, but what is, again, so what you're proposing makes a lot of sense. It is symbiosis. I mean, if you study science, that's what happens. Right. Everything works together towards a goal. But again, if you look at nature, let's pretend for a second that we are animals, which we are. We're a part of the ecosystem.
Totally.
Nature reaches a balance when there's numbers, or it's equal numbers, when there's too many lions, there's not enough food.
You're right.
All of a sudden, the lions die off. Then all of a sudden, gazelles. There's too many gazelles. All of a sudden, there's more lions. So life is constantly an up and down, a yin and yang. You can call it whatever you want. There's cycles. So it's the same thing with us as Jewish people. We go up, we go down. We're no different in that sense than,
let's go back
the lions or the gazelles, for that matter.
So let's go back to your managing quote, because now I get it. I'm going to say, even though Leo and I feel like, this unity thing is really important, I'm going to say now, based on this conversation, that no person has the answer. But if we come together, like, for example, you, and then some lefty Jew, and then, and all these, and we battle it out amongst us, but not having to actually go into the street and kill each other or nuke the hell out of each other, but somehow we come together and try and manage those gazelle forces, like you're a lion, right? And then some other lefty Jew is some gazelle. But then there's too many gazelles. So they take away, but we actually try and do it consciously, and by sitting together, or, I don't know, playing something on the field together, doing something together, then in that, maybe we can do it, like getting the Jews together and having that thing that happens in nature, but between us consciously, not just as animals. We're out there trying to kill each other. Mm-hmm.
And I wish we were animals, because we're not. A lion only eats when he's hungry. After that, a gazelle can go by. But people, no, they can keep, right? I get more money and more money.
We're cruel. We have cruelty, and we have arrogance, and we have hubris.
Exactly. And we have free choice of sorts. So that's what we're aiming. That's the whole thing, is kind of going to that one point of choice, to try to raise our heads above that craziness and try to create a real balance. Yes, things die and are born, and it's not stagnation. It's not equality. It's not cut everybody's heads to make us all the same height. No, but it's somehow reworking that machine so it does work in, more like nature. More like, all right, now a lion has to eat a gazelle. We're all fine with it. Nobody's going to...
a balance.
Balance,
yeah. Talking about. So the question is, and I know I'm asking you a question, even though I'm the one being interviewed.
Yes.
There's got to be some unifying factor, and both of you haven't answered me yet. What is that unity? Where does it come from? We all have to agree on something. If we don't agree on God, what else do we agree on?
That's a good question. If you're a religious Jew, I would say yes. Let's call it God, because God is the force of love and bestowal, and it's one, unique, unified, out of reach. We can all kind of aim to that, and right. But you're not a religious person. Maybe if you're a scientist, I could say, well, it's the grand unified theory of everything. Maybe it's that. But what does it matter? What difference does it make? Can we just call it unite for the sake of attaining unity?
Of course, but again, you're talking in generalities. I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. It would be wonderful if all the Jews got along, but they never have in history. I mean, you're talking about Mount Sinai earlier, and then they got the golden calf, right? So, that's human nature, and it's Jewish nature specifically. So to me, what we need to search for is some kind of a reason for us to be united, and we don't have that. And it's kind of sad because we've lost God. Before, all of other believers, they kind of are united, okay, because they have a similar tract. But because there's so many atheists, and there's reform, and there's
I mean, if we got 72 virgins, we would have something to go fight for, right? I mean, it's clear. Like if we have that, but that's primitive. I think AJ Steele. I think that what we need to do is almost cast a smaller net and just talk to the people who have the feeling inside that it has to happen. We don't know. Let's be honest. As much as we studied, as much as we all accomplished in our lives, we really don't know how it's going to go down. We don't know how. We can't define it in a sentence. You can push us, and we can give you a lot from the sources, from the Zohar, from everywhere. We have all that. But really, it's not helping to make it faster happen into people's hearts. We need to find the small group of people who feel that it has to happen. We need to start working with that small group of people, and we need to reach a critical mass in that small group of people. And, just like, how could it be that Jews, forget what everyone says, but Jews influence Hollywood, Jews influence finance, Jews influence medicine, Jews influence science, Jews influence politics. So the same way, we need to start with a small group, and I mean, I think that's the only way.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I think that's a beautiful ideal. Altruism is where it's at. But we have to find some kind of a common interest, and we've lost that. We've been very divided as a people. And I agree with you. You spoke earlier about how every time there's a disaster, it's because the Jews are not united. But I think that's putting too much pressure on us as Jews. Just because we're not united doesn't mean that we need to be killed or attacked.
Look, you're right.
I mean, why are we supposed to be so special?
No, you
be so special.
I know. Believe me, every Israeli you speak to doesn't want to be so special. I just want to be like everyone else. Sadly, you just can't. Look at history. You were never allowed. Every time you try to assimilate, they're onto you at some point. There's just somehow like almost like something's working against those sentiments, almost.
Of course, it's like I said, it's innate and primal at this point.
Exactly. So, and I wonder if is survival a sweet enough carrot to force us to unite? If you're saying no, then we have a problem. Because
I think we have to agree on what the survival is, and that's the issue. So I think we all want to survive. Whether me on a personal level, I want my kids to do good and go to and have a great life and be safe. Some people want an entire nation of Israel being very powerful, and that's wonderful. Some people want the Jews to be the light of the nations or for the nations again. I think we have to start within ourselves. That's how I've always lived my life. My wife and my kids are the most important thing in the world to me. Then comes the rest of my family. Then comes my friends. Then comes my Jewish community. Then comes my bigger community. Okay, but I don't think we need to ostracize ourselves from the outside society. But I as Jewish people, and I think we've gone over this already, by nature are always going to argue and fight against each other. It's a function of maybe how intelligent we are, or maybe it's some kind of a curse. We've challenged God all the time. We've challenged our own God in the Bible, left and right, and he punishes us. And then we come back and we're good, and then he punishes us again. Maybe that's just our place in this world. So the question is, I like the global idea that you were both proposing, but can we start acting locally? Can we start acting within our little community without recriminations or being angry or aggressive with others?
Exactly. Can we do this? Everything you just described. Everything, every little thing you just described. Start with a small cell, expand it. Do the arguing. Do everything that you said, but agree that it's in the end we're staying together. We're not leaving. We're not going into camps. We can go to our homes. We can go to different parties. We don't have to go to the same bathroom and the same bed. No, but we're staying as one sort of collective. We can't be just individuals. We're too frail for that. And we can't be just that we're somehow agreeing that maybe keep this togetherness as an ideal. We can do everything you said.
Absolutely. And I think we have some sort of a uniting factor, obviously, or whether we like it or not, we're stuck together. The Jewish people are stuck together. What is it? If en anili mili, it's kind of true. Okay. We have to unite, and we are bound either by some kind of a genetic code or religious code, or even by the fact that everybody hates us. And that's not going to change. I like what you're saying. And I like your show. I think you're pushing for something that is beautiful and very important. And it's not necessarily opposed to what I was saying, but I believe that we have to be strong. So that's kind of a similar thing. If we're united, we're strong. But we also have to live as a part of the rest of the world, and we cannot say, oh, we're separate. We have to be part of this ecosystem that is the world, and the world includes Muslims and Christians and Buddhists and etc. But I agree, strength. So that goes back to what I said earlier. It's good to be the big dog. Now, we're never going to be the big dog, but let's show the world that we have some teeth and we can bark and don't mess with us. That's it. That's the best I can hope for us at this point.
That's great. AJ, Mr. Steele, thank you so much for giving us your Saturday morning. It's been I don't know, I felt some fireworks. I felt like there was some as you said, I think we can sit here for hours and talk about it, but we also feel like this is the way to, at least to start, let's talk it out. Let's make some smoke and fire. But and you're I like your style. It's
Thank you. Well, it's a great pleasure to come on your show. I think you guys are doing a wonderful thing, and I plan to keep listening to you and watching you on YouTube. Hopefully they won't ban you like they're banning me all over the place. Hopefully,
yes. And we're gonna. I'm gonna actually. I signed up to your podcast after listening to 3 episodes. I was like, I'm gonna. Hopefully some of that we're gonna learn some of the tricks from you as well. And hopefully you can we can be on our panel one day when we get a bunch of different people together, and we try to put it into action.
Try and create some of that symbiosis between the lions and the gazelles.
There you go.
In real life.
I'd be honored to come on again.
Nice. Thank you so much, AJ, Seth. We are the Jew Function. Yeah, as always, like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell. Share it far and wide. Post your comments and questions. We want to talk about it. We want to find our function in humanity and see a better world for everyone. So thank you so much.
Okay, man.
Take care.